Maniac Chikatilo, a ruthless murderer and a victim of a difficult childhood. 35 years ago, on November 20, 1990, one of the most famous Soviet murderers, Andrei Chikatilo, was arrested. In the RIMO article, we tell you how we managed to catch the elusive maniac after 8 years of unsuccessful searches. The beginning of Chikatilo's career, working as a teacher and its consequences. In his childhood and youth, Andrei Chikatilo did not give any reason to suspect that he was a future maniac. He studied diligently, although he did not get along well with his peers, but he did not show any bad inclinations. For the first time, oddities in Chikatilo's behavior became noticeable in 1970, when after graduating from the philological faculty, he got a job at a boarding school in Novoshakhtinsk. By that time, Andrei Chikatilo was 34 years old, he was married, and his daughter and son were growing up. According to his friends, he adored and cherished his wife Fedosia, and doted on his children. True, there were some difficulties with marital duties, but his wife believed that Andrei's shyness was to blame. At school, however, the Russian language teacher did not show any shyness. On the contrary, he often allowed himself to act inappropriately towards female students. He would put his arm around their shoulders, touch them, and go into the girls' bedrooms after lights out. His career as a teacher was put to rest by an incident on the river. When the students were swimming, Chikatilo swam up to one of the senior students and started grabbing her, pretending to save her from drowning. The girl told the teachers about what had happened, and the violent teacher was persuaded to write a resignation letter. Chikatilo later tried to return to teaching, getting a job in 1978 at a school in the city of Shakhty. However, he was asked to resign from there after yet another scandal involving harassment of a student. Nomadic killer and exemplary family man. It is believed that Chikatilo committed his first murder in Shakhty in the same year, 1978. On December 22, 9-year-old Lena Zakatnova did not return from a walk. Her body was found 2 days later near a small river. The girl had been raped, cut up, and strangled. During the investigation, Chikatilo came under suspicion, but was released because his wife had created a convincing alibi for him. Her previously convicted neighbor was subsequently shot for the murder of the second grader. After Chikatilo was caught, he confessed that he had actually killed the girl. However, he later retracted his confession, and ultimately the Supreme Court excluded Lena Zakatnova from the list of the maniac's victims due to insufficient evidence. According to the official version, Chikatilo's list of atrocities was open in 1982. Once he started killing, the sadist never stopped. In 1982 alone, he took the lives of 7 children and teenagers aged 9 to 18. In 1983, he killed 7 more people, and in 1984, another 15. The bloody massacres continued until the autumn of 1990. Chikatilo had a gift for winning people over. Under various pretexts, he convinced his victims to go to his home, to his dacha, to the beach, or to the forest. The maniac took one boy with his mother's permission. She and her son were waiting for a train at the station, and the teenager went with a charming fellow traveler to buy water at a kiosk. The mother never saw her son alive again. Sometimes Chikatilo noticed school children walking alone and followed them to deserted copses or wastelands. He offered to walk the girls home or help them carry their bags. Most of the victims had multiple stab wounds, organs were cut out, eyes were gouged out, and there were also signs of rape. The gender of the victim was of no particular importance to Chikatilo. He liked the fact that children and teenagers were completely defenseless against a strong, rabid man. However, sometimes the maniac got his hands on adults. The oldest of his victims was 44 years old. Once he took the lives of 2 people at once, a 29-year-old woman and her 3rd-grader daughter. The Rostov police were running off their feet, but could not catch the killer. They had neither a composite sketch nor any evidence. The famous psychiatrist Alexander Bukhanovsky, came to the aid of the Rostov investigators. He compiled the first psychological portrait of the maniac. According to the doctor, the murderer was not crazy or marginal, but a completely ordinary Soviet citizen with a good social and financial position. Most likely, he is married and raising children, and his work involves traveling. Indeed, when comparing data from different parts of the Union, it turned out that the geography of the elusive maniac's murders covered a significant territory. He even made his mark in the Moscow, Leningrad, and Sverdlovsk regions. Chikatilo worked in the supply department of one of the Shakhtinsk enterprises, and often went on business trips. However, he committed most of his atrocities in Rostov-on-Don and its environs, not far from his place of residence. The hunt for Chikatilo and Operation Forest Belt. In the autumn of 1984, Chikatilo almost got caught. At night, at the Rostov-on-Don bus station, he met a troubled girl and, perhaps, planned to take a walk with her to the nearest forest plantation. However, his strange behavior interested the police officers on duty. A decently dressed citizen who was talking to a slovenly tramp seemed suspicious to the officer, and Chikatilo was taken to the police station. Ropes, a knife, and Vaseline were found in his briefcase. The man explained that he worked in supply, packed parcels with rope, cut rope with a knife, and used Vaseline to soften chapped skin. The explanations seemed convincing, but Citizen Chikatilo was still sent to the temporary detention center, pending clarification. The operatives had information that, judging by the biological traces on one of the victims, the maniac must have had blood type 4. Chikatilo had type 2. He was released. In early 1986, when tensions in society reached their peak, a real hunt was declared for the serial killer. Operation Forest Belt, which involved hundreds of people, cost the state almost 10 million rubles. Plainclothes police officers were on duty in the streets, bus stations, and stops of the Rostov region, paying attention to all suspicious men. Frivolously dressed policewomen rode in commuter trains, trying to catch the killer with bait. Even military helicopters were used in the search for the maniac. In the evenings, vigilantes patrolled the cities and villages. Unfortunately, almost everyone who wanted to could join the vigilantes, and Andrei Chikatilo decided to take advantage of this circumstance. Together with other responsible comrades, he participated in the hunt for himself, and of course, at that time the series of murders stopped. Operation Forest Belt allowed to identify many violations and solve about 1,000 crimes, but it did not contribute to the capture of the Rostov maniac. In 1987, he began killing again. Chikatilo's last victim. Chikatilo was caught only in 1990, shortly after he committed his last murder. On November 6, 1990, not far from a suburban platform, in a small copse, he raped and stabbed a young girl. A patrolman on duty at the station noticed a well-dressed citizen coming out of the forest. Small twigs and leaves were stuck to the suit and hat of this decent-looking man. The patrolman checked the suspicious citizen's documents and wrote down the name in his notebook, Chikatilo. The girl's body was found a week later in a forested area near the railway by summer residents, and the patrolman immediately remembered the strange man he had met on the platform. Chikatilo was caught on November 20, when he was returning from the clinic. The 16-year-old boy he had killed several weeks earlier had bitten his finger during a struggle, and the wound had taken a long time to heal. According to eyewitnesses, the murderer took his arrest quite calmly. However, only the luminary of psychiatry Alexander Bukhanovsky, who helped the investigation to draw up a psychological portrait of the maniac, managed to obtain his confession. After talking with Bukhanovsky, Chikatilo began to testify, willingly sharing both the details of the murders and episodes of his hard life. Difficult childhood as an excuse for a maniac. Andrei Chikatilo was born in 1936 in the village of Yablishnoye, 100 kilometers from Kharkov. The Great Patriotic War began when the boy was 4 years old. His father went to the front, and in 1942 the Germans came to the village. The killer told how adults and children were shot before his eyes, and he himself was taken for dead when he fell in the crowd. The boy allegedly had to lie in a pile of corpses of his friends for a whole night. However, after years it was impossible to verify this story. During the war years, Andrei and his mother, and later his sister Tatiana, whose father, according to one version, was a German rapist, almost died of hunger, eating literally what they could find. The mother could hardly feed the children. They often fainted from hunger. The school years of the future maniac were also joyless. Andrei grew up a shy and whiny child and was also nearsighted, for which his classmates teased and beat him. Until the age of 12, he suffered from enuresis, but the family barely made ends meet, so there was no way to treat the boy. Chikatilo's first love, according to him, resulted in ridicule from both his chosen one and her friends. After that, he lost faith in himself as a man. All this, according to the killer, influenced his character, fate, and inclinations. He claimed that throughout his childhood and youth, he was intimidated, humiliated, and disrespected, so he had no chance of growing up as a normal person. Forensic psychiatric examinations found the maniac to be completely sane, and the court imposed the highest measure of punishment. Chikatilo was executed on February 14, 1994. According to the official conclusion, 43 people died at the hands of Chikatilo from 1982 to 1990, and the maniac himself attributed 55 murders to himself. Some of his victims have still not been identified,